some geological data and mapping for.
Okay, I'll look forward to seeing the map, because I'm having a hard time visualizing the geographical relationship.
Yeah, so that's going to be forthcoming, and
okay.
It didn't have to be today, but the sooner the better, so we can make sure it gets incorporated anyways. Okay. So I guess what I'm going to ask you, Glenn, is to afford me a little bit of time to come up with some language that summarizes this a little better, and I'm going to wait for some of the information that's being passed.
Could you read the last two paragraphs then?
Oh, your recommendation is that Fort Island Ventures and the Commander Navy Region Hawaii conduct a full environmental impact statement that would provide Hawaiian practitioners and historians with much needed information to piece together a complete and comprehensive cultural snapshot of One'ula and Kalealoa into the whole of a region. The CNRH, Fort Island Ventures, and the Hawaii State Department of Land and Natural Resources support the provisions of NAGPRA by setting in place a cultural site monitor to ensure the Hawaiian community is not compromised or placed in a position of imminent harm, and Fort Island Ventures not prematurely perform site work, for example, grading, grubbing, or drilling, or by circumventing any provision of the PA before all consulting parties had a chance to review and, can I have some water? Thank you so much. I should have brought it on. Review and agree to all the provisions. Furthermore, the Navy's archaeologist at the 6 October 11 Section 106 meeting consented to provide a proposed comprehensive archaeological site assessment plan that would be agreeable to all the consulting parties and satisfactory to the Hawaiian community awaiting the assessment plan. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you too. Kind of warm. He's looking to see if there's something different, but thank you, Dad. Evelyn.
I'm going to address the environmental impact statement request, and then I'm going to ask Jeff to address some of the archaeology and cultural Native Hawaiian issues, and anyone else can add to that. This project, in short, does not warrant an environmental impact statement based on the proposed undertaking and the level of ground disturbance and some of the measures that have been taken to avoid ground disturbance. An environmental assessment would take several years, and it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's an environmental assessment is what's being conducted. It will also consider, and now more specifically, address more fully the underground car system. And you use the environmental assessment to determine if that's sufficient. And if you don't, there will be a public comment period.
I understand that right now there's only an assessment, and EIS goes beyond.
It's not only.
And an EIS goes beyond an assessment. I can go out there and kick a can or kick a rock and find there's no sinkholes. I mean, if that suffices to the people that, the cultural practitioners or the people with lineage, then you know, I can go along with that.
Okay.
It just comes down to this, with people don't understand, because you know the kahuna of the ocean, I was taught by my grandfather, was taught by theirs, and it goes on. Those underground aqueducts, they bring nitrates to our limo that make it grow. This was known as Haleolimo, the house of limo, which brings in all the fish and all. It's the foundation of the food gathering source under Article 12, Section 7. And that's what we're just trying to safeguard, to protect for everybody and be mindful of the law.
I do want to take this opportunity, because I think, and no, I don't have your history, but I do think there's a sensitivity to the Native Hawaiian practices and history and any remnants that may be there, underground or below, or above ground. It's come into a lot of discussion. I think at earlier meetings, Shad, I actually cited your objections to moving it off the runway. It's part of the record. So it wasn't forgotten, but it was a decision about the least harmful solution. The reason you have a 106 consultation is because you acknowledge that there are some adverse effects, and you take measures to minimize them.
And I appreciate that.
But it's also one of the reasons, and this is a very tough point, and it's tough with anything that HECO probably is dealing with. It's one of the reasons we don't, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons we do not support burying the power line. Because we knew that the ground disturbance would just be immense. So it's a balance. It's a balancing act, and it's not easy, as everyone knows. And I hope that at the end of the day, you'll feel that there are adequate provisions. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff quickly to talk about you know, the monitoring program and the archaeological.
Just one more point. The USGS map of 1943 basically
I
shows.
have this.
Okay, you have that. Okay, that water hole, and I need that back for
Yes.
Clyde so that he can do the whereas off of those maps.
We-
Where you see that on the shoreline where it
We can
comes
get
out,
that.
that is the outlet of
Yeah.
this
We
aqueduct.
have-
Yeah,
we
so
have
it
this.
gives
We
you
have
a thumbnail sketch of, you know, how to,
Okay.
but it's not the only one, because you have
There's
subsurge,
Right.
low tide
Mhm.
springs too. But so long as you are aware that there is documentation at the time this airfield was being constructed, so it didn't break into that,
That's an important point, because we're not going to go that
Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
within this project.
which is
So
good.
That's the first thing, and the monitoring is going to be done for all ground disturbing activities. Secondly is the cultural assessment, and that's why I'm glad that Mr. Lee is here today, because not only to share this information, but I'm sure there's others that have information that.
This is for you, burial treatment plant, this area.
Okay, thank you. The barrel treatment plan will be included in a monitoring plan. Okay. Mhm.
This is right in this area, burial treatment plan 1994.
You did cite that in your.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so-
Yeah,
Thank you.
Two comments is, one is that 5 feet deep, I think, is pretty deep, and that should be a consideration. I mean, we're talking about with Hiko poles going through there. And the other one is, didn't you mention something about the NEPA plan was not yet finished? That still has to be
NEPA
completed?
is never, what happens is cultural resource review under NHPA, which is 106, affects NEPA. So NEPA, 106 looks just at cultural resources. NEPA looks at the broad environment. It looks at social issues. It looks at cultural issues. It looks at Native Hawaiian. It looks at demographics. It looks at traffic. It looks at geography, the geology, hydrology, species, natural, you know, anything that grows or breathes.
Right.
And cultural resources as well, and then it assesses the potential impacts to all of those things.
And that's not yet done,
And that is in draft form.
okay?
It's, once we finish the PA, that will be included. It's included in the NEPA document as an attachment.
PAS.
The PA is, yeah.
But isn't that all part of the area of potential effect? I mean, if we're talking about
Yeah.
effects,
Yeah.
and we're not talking about the underground at all
No,
having any effect.
It's the well, NEPA doesn't have an APE the same way. It does have an APE and it is broader potentially. But it's also focused on the undertaking, on the act. It's called an action under NEPA, which is just the solar field and the infrastructure. And that will be available shortly for everyone to review, and that'll have a public review as well.
And just to let you know, Endangered Species.
It won't be me.
Endangered Species Act, the monk seal does use this area to rest and to feed. I got the numbers of the guys who park their carcass up there, because I do collecting, and so this directly affects a federally recognized endangered species, the Hawaiian monk seal.
It doesn't directly affect it.
It does, because
That has not been determined yet.
well, the thing is, it has to eat, and what brings it in to eat is the seaweed that brings the fish to eat. There's a food chain and a food cycle, and what enhances that growth of abundance that makes us the House of Limu is this karst system.
Right,
There's a connection.
but the belief, and I think, I'll ask Jeff to confirm, but our belief is that given the measures that have been taken, we will not impact the karst
Yeah,
system.
if that's all
Right.
true, then
So
that's
that's
good.
right.
But for the record, it has to
That's
be
your
put down.
concern.
That's my
Yes,
concern for
and
the
it-
record,
and it-
yeah.
And those concerns have already been forwarded.
The monk seal.
No, not the
That's
most.
why I brought it up
karst,
for
the karst
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
And we have, the environmental assessment is being completed by a consultant. It's not being done in-house. It's a very extensive, and it's been going on concurrently with
And
this
they're
process.
talking to cultural practitioners
They're
like myself.
talking to, I don't know who they're talking to. Have they talked to you already?
No,
Okay,
and it's
well,
really important that
Okay.
they do.
Is that,
I
is
will
that
have-
the Randall Chi or the Will Chi?
Yeah, we requested a list of experts, Hawaiian
That's what's doing
practitioners. Did we
That's
just?
going to be part of the cultural assessment.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
That's gonna
What's
be
the
different.
civics and
These
all
are,
of it?
we're getting out of
Yeah.
106 and into NEPA, but when the NEPA, what happens is when NEPA draft comes out, that gets made publicly available and advertised as well. So you'll have an opportunity to look at the broader reaching effects. I can tell you that it's a very different process and it's a very different view. In fact, environmental assessment, although we have adverse effects under a cultural resource assessment, the impacts under NEPA may actually, you'll have more beneficial impacts potentially.